Hi everyone, this is Lacey McAlay from the Athens State Educational Newsroom. Have you heard of the outbreak of the amazing flipped classroom technique? The flipped classroom is an educational trend where students watch lectures and videos at home and the teacher expands on the lectures and videos with hands-on activities and inquiry-based activities. We interviewed Aaron Sams from Colorado and asked him to explain what a flipped classroom is.
I'm Aaron Sams. We're here in Woodland Park, Colorado at Woodland Park High School. Flipped learning, I think, on a really basic level, is taking what has traditionally been given in a lecture in terms of direct instruction and shifting that out of the class time, and then using that recuperated time more wisely, more valuably to really meet the individual learning needs of students.
Thank you, Aaron. The flipped classroom technique is currently being used in many classrooms around the world and is predicted to grow in population. So we interviewed John Bergman, one of the founding fathers of the flipped classroom, and asked him what he thought the flipped classroom should look like.
If you walked into a flipped classroom, you're going to see kids actively involved in their learning. If it's science, they might be doing experiments. It's a foods class, they're going to be making foods, having conversations with each other. They're getting more help from their teacher. The teacher's going to be walking around and helping their students. You've seen these things before, but if you will, the magic of the flipped classroom is there's going to be more time for those things.
There are two key factors that are increasing the adoption of the flipped classroom technique, and they are poor learning outcomes and the prevalence of online videos. Did you know that only 69% of the students that start high school graduate? So teachers are desperately and successfully using the flipped classroom technique to improve and interest students in learning. We asked our educational trend researcher, Julie Davis, to find and explain some pros and cons of implementing the flipped classroom technique. And we have also asked a couple of students to tell us how they feel about the flipped classroom technique. First is Julie Davis. Julie, what are some pros and cons of the flipped classroom technique?
Thank you, Lacey. I have 2 pros and 2 cons that I would like to discuss. The first pro of implementing the flipped classroom is that students have more control over their own learning. For example, students are given the freedom to work at their own pace when watching the lectures and videos at home. Students can pause, rewind, and write down questions whenever they want. The second pro that I found is that the flipped classroom promotes student-centered learning and collaboration. This is because the flipped classroom focuses class time on helping students master skills and participate in collaborative projects. The 2 cons, however, are that the flipped classroom is dependent on trust and provides the teacher with a larger workload. The flipped classroom is dependent on trust because the teacher must trust the students to watch the lectures and other videos at home in order to complete the in-class activities. The flipped classroom may provide the teacher with a larger workload because the teacher must tediously make or choose the videos for the students to watch. Those are a few pros and cons associated with the flipped classroom. Now you all can decide if the pros outweigh the cons.
Thank you, Julie. Now let's hear the opinions of a couple of students from Fort Payne High School.
At first, I didn't like it because I didn't write the notes down. I just watched it, and it kind of just like went in one ear and out the other. But like halfway through the trimester, I started writing it down because I noticed other people were, and then it was really helpful.
Yeah. I like them for going back into like subjects because there's a lot of them up there. So if I had like a difficulty with a certain thing, I didn't have to really necessarily ask you. I could kind of go home and do it myself.
An example of the flipped classroom is a teacher assigning Khan Academy videos and interactive practice problems for the students to do at home and expanding on the material when the students return to class. The teacher could expand on the material by allowing the students to use the math in real-life situations while in the classroom. Now that you've heard all about the fantastic flipped classroom technique, you can take it for a test drive in your own classroom. That's all I have for today, but before leaving, please check out some of our resources. Thank you. Here are the many resources that we use to find our information.